and maybe I should define what domestic violence is before we go too far. What is it? It's violence by one person against another in a domestic setting, such as marriage or cohabitation. It involves violence against children, parents, or the elderly. And so it might not be between spouse to spouse, it can be also against children, against your elderly parents who stay in the home with you. And so it's major, it takes many forms, and some of the forms are verbal, emotional, mental, physical, sexual, and economic, and everything. They are so different, many different forms of abuse. But to us, majority of us only know it when it comes to physical, when someone slaps you, when someone pushes you, when someone does something that is visible. And until we see bruises on people, we don't know they are going through it, you know. But then usually those are among the last stages. By the time someone hits you, by the time they get to you physically, they have already done all these other forms of abuse. Now, if I come to myself, I talk from experience, and obviously people who have listened to different stories about domestic violence, they never happen the same way. Every case is unique, right? And so mine is unique in a way that when I went into this marriage, I met, this is 2008. I came in America in 2008, and I'm assuming people from all over the world will watch this. So I moved to America in 2008, and now 2009, I met this guy, and of course we decided to stay together. As you can tell, there was not much time to learn each other, to know each other. But of course, we make these mistakes over and over again. And that's why I prefer to open up about it, because someone else might be saved through it. And so I met this person and we started living together. But then as soon as I got in it, I started feeling uneasy. There's something very, I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't tell what is this, but it doesn't feel right. But because I grew up in a single parent home, my mother was married, but then my father died before I could turn 10. And so I've never witnessed domestic violence in my home. I don't even know how it shows up. I've heard people scream in my neighborhood, in the Ushago, but I only thought domestic violence is when someone hits you. But then when I went into this marriage, there's no hitting, but then something is off. The way he's talking to me, the way he wants to control me, the way he wants to show me who I can be around and who I cannot be around. He wants to control the people who are around me. He wants to control what I do or how I relate with my family. He wants to control every cent I make. And even though I hear about some mission, I could tell something is off. And I didn't know what it was until I went to school. I was in nursing school at the time. And we went to school, and during psychology, the class of psychology, the teacher started pointing out different points why you should, when you're in an abusive relationship, you should know. And when she went through those points, and I could tell, man, this is what is happening in my home. And I'm in the middle of a domestic violence marriage. And I was like, okay, what should I do then? And she told us to go watch a movie about sleeping with the enemy, acted by Julia Roberts. And when I went and watched that movie, it became very clear that yes, I am in an abusive relationship. But then by this time, the only way he had abused me was emotionally, was mentally, was economically, controlling, you know? So now I was like, but he's not hitting me. What should I do? And at this time, the worst thing I did is to hide from my mother what is going on in my life, because I didn't want to stress her. And so when I didn't involve her in this, and I was only telling her the good things that this person is doing to me, trying to cover up from his failures and from his mistakes. So I didn't have anybody to share with. And so within me, I didn't know what to do. And I tried to leave that relationship when I opened my eyes, and now I realized, yes, I'm in an abusive marriage. And it's just a matter of time before it turned physical. And so I decided to leave the marriage. And that failed because somehow he learned about it and he begged, of course, and I gave in. That was not very smart. But to cut the whole story short, 4 years down the line, that was the first that was the first time he hit me physically. He slapped me. And all this time, and by that time he's slapping me, 2 weeks prior to that, I had gone to bury my friend who was stabbed to death by her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, not even a husband, an ex-boyfriend. And she shared with me how she met this guy and they didn't get along very well, but the guy is very possessive and obsessive. And now he has declared that she can never date anybody again if it's not him. And so he kept stalking her. And that's why I mentioned stalking as a form of abuse. He stalked her and he would break into her home and abuse her and rape her, and promised her if she ever notified the police, he will kill her. And guess what? She endured this over and over again. And one time we were working out together, we were at the gym, and she came with a black eye. And I'm diversing a little bit, so pay attention, just follow up, you'll see where I'm coming from. So I asked her what's wrong. She had her dark glasses and we are in the gym. I'm like, what's wrong? So she has a huge black eye, and she opened up at this point and she said she's been abused over and over again by an ex-boyfriend, and he promised her that if she tells the police, he will kill her. But at some point, the neighbors saw them fighting and they called the police. And so the guy was taken and put in jail. But the only thing they can do with this kind of situation is they can only hold him for a while. And so when the holding time was over, he was let go. And guess what he did? He went straight to her house, broke in again, and stabbed her over 30 times. And so on Tuesday, I'm working out with this lady in the gym, and she's telling me about this story. And now on Friday, she is in a coffin, and I'm witnessing her in a coffin. And it woke me up, and I realized, oh my God, this can end like this. My situation can end like this. I can end up dead anytime, because all the signs this lady was telling me about her ex-boyfriend, how he was threatening her, how he was saying, if it's not me, it's nobody else. I was going through the very, very same things in my house. And who do I share with? Anybody I tried to share with seemed like they didn't get the magnitude, the fear in me, the worry in me. And so when he slapped me this one time, he came home drunk, and it's 3 a.m. and I'm thinking, of course, every time he came home drunk, and I was in the towards the end of my, no, I mean in the middle of a semester, and he would start a fight. And I can't give this story justice. So if you want to know more about the story, I've written the whole story in here in the book, The Abused Queen. So you can get yourself a copy on Amazon and read the whole thing. But then when he came home and he hit me this time, I was sure this is it. This is how I'm gonna die. Because he's never hit me before, even though we've maybe exchanged words, and he's being emotional and mentally and even verbally abusive. He's never hurt me, touched me. And so now my head was full of my friend's pictures, and I could see her saying, this can end badly. And even when she shared her story, I never shared mine, because I wasn't sure, man, how do I even tell this? This guy looks perfect to other people. In fact, he's the kind of people that you would give your child to.
See?
He's very sharp. He's very happy that time. And so you wouldn't suspect from looking at him that he would be abusive. And so even trying to convince anybody that this person is abusive was very hard. And I knew telling people they would not understand. And so that's why when this happened and now he hit me, and it's a very graphic situation where I tried to take the phone to call for help, and he grabbed the phone and he threw it. But by God's grace, it hit something, it hit the bed, and it called the last number that I was talking to. It happened to be my friend, and she heard the commotion in the house, and now I asked her to call the police. And so this guy now panicked. He panicked because he's like, wait, oh, she gonna call the police. And so he's afraid of the law, yet he's doing this. Now, at that point, it's like he came back to his senses, and he came to me and he said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do this and all that. And so at that point, now I felt like, okay, the only time I'll feel safe is if the police come here, because I don't feel like I can really trust this guy. And so my friend never called the police, and you see that in the book. I won't go into details. But one of the things I want to emphasize where I'm at that point is, if you know you don't want to end up with problems with the law, do not attempt domestic violence. There are several other ways to solve problems. If you're mad, if you are angry, if you have anger issues, do not attempt to hurt your partner, especially if you're sure you don't want to deal with the law, because we have been allowed, and there is that law that we should be able to be protected. And so the only way I can find help when you're abusing me is to call for help, and the help that I can call for is the police. And so when now you start blaming the woman for calling the police, or blaming the man for calling the police while their life is threatened, that is not fair. It's not fair, because the person who is doing the abusing should know that that can happen, and that will happen. And so I have seen a lot of blaming. In fact, I was very blamed, because eventually the police came in and he was given a restraining order. And there were so many people who were against the fact that I called the police. And you wonder, what is more important, my life, when my life is in danger, or the fact that the police came to rescue me? So don't be fooled. If you need help, call the police. That's why they are there. Because at some of these times, these people are not thinking right, and you need someone to rescue you. And what easier way than calling 911? And that is within America. Of course, when you're in Kenya or wherever else you are, scream, ask for help. However way you can get help, call for it. Now, I left that whole marriage at that point after the slap, but I didn't stay long. Even though I knew it was wrong to go back, there was so much pressure of, how can you leave a marriage just because someone slapped you? How can you do this? Come on now, this is a good guy. Give him a second chance. He begged, he called my family members, he called all my friends, he called our pastor, and he talked us. He talked them into convincing me that was a mistake and it was not going to happen again. And obviously, foolishly, I agreed and I believed it. And I went back. And for a while, it was a honeymoon phase. So after some time, I'm done with school. We have a child, 8 months old. And now I can see this situation is not getting any better. And now I'm planning within my mind that it's either I stay in this miserable situation where abuse, especially emotional and mental and economical abuse, is always there, or I can move out. And now I'm considering moving out, but somehow he gets information that I'm trying to get out of the marriage. And so that is where he came in, and one morning he just came in from work. He boiled water. I thought he was making tea. But when I woke up, he took that water and threw it to my face, boiling water from the stove. And now, as you can guess, my skin burnt up. And I have some pictures here, I hope you can see. Now, I've suffered first-degree burns on the face and second-degree burns on the chest. These are some of the pictures. If you go on my Facebook page, maybe it will show better. As you can see, this is the second or the first day in the hospital. And so my face was still, naitwa nini, kurugeka. I don't know what that name is. Now, the second day, now I'm home. They sent me home that very day. And my chest has bandaged up. And my face now is getting swollen, so swollen. I don't know if you can see it clearly. In fact, you can see my eyes are closed up. And now I ended up in a hospital bed. And I'm there. I'm not sure how it will turn out. Will I ever heal from these scars? How will this turn out? And now I have him. He is in the custody, in the police custody. Now, we have an 8-month-old daughter. She's in the hands of a friend who is a stranger to her. Now, I want to show you how crazy domestic violence is, because now overnight, last night was fine. We did not fight. In fact, he was at work. He called, as he always do. He wished us good night. We went to bed like nothing is different. But the following day at 12 midday, I was in a hospital bed. He was in police custody. My child was crying uncontrollably in the hands of a friend. And as you can see, I was breastfeeding at the time, but that was the last time my baby breastfed, because now I am full of bandages. Now you can imagine the pain of a new mom who is breastfeeding and not able to do that anymore because you can't go there. And now the child is used to breast milk and she can't breastfeed anymore. And now you can't even hold your baby, because I couldn't hold my baby for 2 weeks from that point, because I was burnt in my chest. Now, why I shared this story is because I hope that no one else, even my worst enemy, I couldn't wish them this. It is so demeaning, it's traumatizing. It's just by God's grace that I am here today. I did not die, because as you can see, you can hear, I lost a friend. She died. And so I know very well that it would have ended the same way for me. But I thank God it didn't go that way. And also the fact that he meant to destroy me, but within time, God healed my skin and grew some brand new skin on me. All glory to God. And so this is a serious situation. I know the magnitude. I know the pain of it. And so that's why I prefer to open up. I prefer to, it doesn't matter who, because now at that point, you lost your integrity, you lost your everything. People are talking about you. Now, I've lost all that. So what's the point of keeping quiet and let someone else suffer the same thing? So if you see these signs in your home, I don't tell people divorce, but I can tell you, if you know these signs are there in your home and you know they can end up like that because you've been threatened, they have hurt you, they have hit you already, they have said over and over again, I can kill you. Don't take those words lightly. Do not take them lightly. You can't just brat out words without thinking, or say, even if they say them drunk, don't take them lightly, because one day it will happen. When he say, I can kill you, when he say, I cannot imagine another man with you, is what he's trying to tell me is, don't even think you can leave me. And like you can see, he carried out his plans to make sure that I cannot leave him. And if I did, no one else will look at me. I will not be any good to anybody else. So my call today, if I don't do anything else, don't ignore the signs. Seek help. Some of us grew up in a home, and when you come to what causes domestic violence, There are several things. There are like five reasons or five things that I've come up with that causes it. Not really me, right? What I have found out. Childhood experiences. You saw your parents fight over and over again, and now you think in your mind that's the default setting. You think that's what happens when someone hurts you, when someone angers you, when someone does something that is not right to you. You slap them because you saw your father slapping your mother. Even though you know it's not right, you still do it because that's your default setting, and you have to go inside your hardware, your mind, and change that because it's not normal. Just because your father did it, just because your mother did it, does not make it right. Now, another thing is major life changes. So when there is an increase in stress level in a home, there is a chance that someone can snap. And so major life changes are things like a pregnancy. Maybe you are not ready to be pregnant. You're in a marriage when you are not ready to be pregnant, but then it happened. And so that increases the stress level. And that can cause someone to have, anytime there's an increase in stress level, there's a very high chance of abuse, especially when their default setting is not right. There's a job loss, there's family member illness. Those are major things that can cause stress level to increase. Economic circumstances, maybe you lose a job, maybe for a closure of a home, you went into bankruptcy, things like that affect your financial stability can lead to increase of stress and then also increase of chances of domestic violence. There is insecurity, and this is what I was dealing with, insecurity. Someone that they are not secure enough in who they are, and now they feel like, oh, she can leave me anytime, because he don't feel good in who he really is. There's a lot of insecurity. Those are the people that look at your phone, that follow you around, that are afraid when you talk to members of the opposite sex. That's insecurity, all right? And it happens a lot with our men and women. Now, there is also alcohol and drug abuse. People who abuse alcohol, people who drink alcohol and drugs. At that point, remember, you are not at your right mind. And so when something happens, you can easily hurt another person because you are not using your own mind. You are under influence. And so, especially if you know you have anger issues, you have insecurity issues, you should stay away from alcohol, right? Because now, if you already have those issues, alcohol will only increase the chances of you abusing your spouse and even abusing your children. Some children suffer in these homes. Now, undiagnosed personality and psychological disorder. There are people who are sick, mental disorders, but they are not diagnosed. And so until the doctor tells you you are schizophrenic, you are bipolar, you are this, then you don't know, you just act out a certain way and hurt people. So that's also a cause of undiagnosed, of domestic violence. And so I hope I'm not talking too much. So I'll give you a chance, Sam, to say what if there's any question so far. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, so far I've received 2 questions. The first one is the issue of makaratasi. Either both of you or one of them doesn't have makaratasi. How should you proceed on with involving the authorities in your situation?
So it's obviously a tricky situation, but especially if you are the one being abused and you don't have the right papers, you don't have the right makaratasi, the government puts that into consideration. There are ways. I think VAWA is one of them. I don't have those resources, but I can look them up and I'll send them to you through this link. So there are ways they can help you. Even if you don't have makaratasi and you are receiving abuse, they will help you. They will put you in a shelter. They will provide food for you. At that time, at that moment, Makaratasi does not matter. And even if you provide evidence that you are going through domestic violence, there is help for that. There is actually visas they give to domestic violence victims. And so even if I did not have papers at that particular time, I would have already have papers because I went through that. So that's where calling for help comes in. Because now, if you endure this abuse at home and nobody knows, and you don't ever report it, you endure it. And when people ask you, what are these bruises on you, you lie about it because we are good at that, right? So there will never be evidence, because evidence that can help you with makaratasi comes from the law enforcement center. Where, what have you reported? Have you reported a case of, you know, being abused? Have you been abused and reported before? Because that's when the only time they can clarify that, yes, there is domestic violence in this home. So the more you hide from it, you're not doing yourself any justice. So yeah, there is help for those people who don't have makaratasi. And now, if you are the abuser and you don't have the makaratasi, I mean, whose issue should that be? You, the one that should know very well that you don't have the right paperwork. And so putting yourself in a place where the law is involved against you, then that makes it even harder for you to ever get this makaratasi. Even if you are a citizen, even if you have the right paper, and you keep showing up, you keep getting involved in this domestic violence situation, it will affect your papers. It will affect your stay in America. It will affect it, believe it. So I think the best thing here is to look within yourself. What is causing this? Sometimes it's advisable to go separate ways. Separate, kidogo, you know, go away for a minute and see life from this other person's perspective. See what is it that we are fighting about. Who is at fault here? Take some time. But while you're doing that, do not abandon your kids. While you're doing that, don't let your kids suffer, because they have nothing to do with those mistakes. Okay, they have nothing to do with the fact that even if they do, they should not suffer because you guys cannot get along. And so I hope I answered that.
Yes. The other question is, what red flags can you highlight? You know, either a friend is going through domestic violence or a couple is going through domestic violence, and where kids are involved, how do you handle this?
Good. Now, like I said, my physical abuse happened at the last year together, the 4th year. We stayed together for 4 years, and the 4th year is when physically I was abused. Before then, it was just manipulation, control, and all that. And many people have investigated what causes domestic violence, and mainly they have come up with two reasons why people abuse. Is because they want control, their manipulation and control, power and control. Now, one red flag you should look for is that a controlling person. Now, there is obviously a difference between control and submission. Because when someone is submissive, you don't have to beat me up to be submissive. I know as a woman what I'm supposed to do. And of course, some of us have issues with submission, because I can't say all women know how to submit. I can't say all men know how to be the head and not beat you up. But what I can say is, when a man, especially like I said, when a man or a woman tries to control who you speak to, and of course, when you get married, there are relationships that should be done with. There are things you should stop doing. That comes as a compromise just because you got married, right? And that is usually common sense. But then when someone tries to manipulate who is around you, because in my situation, he knew I was new in America. And so around me, the people that I used to hang around me, he could tell, if I tell them what is happening in my home, they might notice that this guy is abusive. And so what he tried to tell me is so and so is not right, don't hang around her. So and so she has this bad reputation, don't hang around her. And of course he was here before I was. And so in my mind I'm thinking, well, he probably know better, because I'm not thinking abuse at that point. I didn't know what that was. And so when people try to manipulate you and tell you, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't go here, there are places you cannot go as a married person, especially as a woman. But of course, not because someone is pulling you away. That usually is common sense. And some of that is that, so those are some of the red flags, you know. But before you get to physical abuse and effects, what people can see, like I saw on my friend, the black eye on my friend, like can see a busted lip on someone who was hit, broken teeth, things like that. Mentally, there are things you should look for, especially from people that know you very well. See, like I know my sister, I know my close friend. So the people around you should be able to tell when something is different with you. And they have to be very keen to see some of these things. Like when you're going through emotional abuse, you become unmotivated. I don't know how to say that. You become like lethargic. You're just there. You stop existing. You stop living. And now you're just there. You are unmotivated. You are very low self-worth because someone has been pushing you down. You feel hopeless, right? So those are some of the things. Also, emotional, mental. You will notice some of those things: depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, suicidal thoughts. You know, someone who was never into drugs or alcohol, they start drinking, they start abusing drugs. You will see some of those things. Post-traumatic stress disorder is when someone you see, you can tell easily someone who have been slapped before, because if you're next to them and you even lift up your head to scratch your head, they will duck. That's a sign someone has been abused, you know. So those are some of the things you can tell from behavior from someone that you know very well. Because now, since you don't know me very well, if I become unmotivated, you don't know if that's me, if that's who I am. But now, if you have spent enough time around me, you should be able to say, Stella is talkative, Stella is like this, she likes to laugh, she likes to do this. Now, if that changes that enough that you can see, then you should be able to notice, something is different with so-and-so, something is off. And so, but then physically, that's usually obvious. But then abusers are not stupid. So what they do, they won't hit you on the face where everybody can see. So they hurt you within the body. And so they may hurt you in the back. I've seen people who are burnt with iron. I have seen people who are their arm is broken and then they keep lying that I fell or whatever happened. They will have issues like involuntary shaking. Someone is just shaking and they were not like that before. There is change in sleeping and eating habits. There is muscle tension. Those are pains in your body. Like there are people who are listening now who are going through it, but because it's not physical, they can't identify it. But then your body can tell you you are under intense stress because your muscle starts shaking. You have trouble sleeping and eating. You either overeat or not eat. Okay, and there's to both women and men, there's sexual dysfunction, and so you find yourself like you are not as interested as you were before. That's a change that has come because something has happened within the marriage. There's menstrual cycle issues with women and infertility issues because you have too much stress and obviously your hormone level has been affected. And so some of those are some of the things with children too. Things that you can notice with children is anxiety. The anxiety, there's depression, there's academic problems. A kid that was performing very well before, and now they are not performing well at all. they have failed, they are starting to have issues at school, there is fear because now the home is infested with abuse. And now everywhere you go, there's fear. So the kid becomes withdrawn. The kid becomes like, they keep to themselves. And you can tell this is different because this kid was maybe talkative, maybe playful, maybe very active, but all of a sudden something has happened. They are either having trouble at school because they are causing fights, or they are being bullied too much, because they are fearful and they act a certain way. Yeah, so those are some of the things you can tell from looking at someone, from knowing people. So be watching for the people that because they might be going through this and they might not be able to tell you, because that's one big fear we are dealing with. How do I open up? Because how do I know if I open up to you, you're not going to spread news out there? So we have to be our brother's keeper. We really do. We have to be our sister's keeper. And if I come to you and share what is going on in my home, don't take that and go spread it. Don't even tell one more soul, especially if you're not telling them to help. And that is not a testimony period for you to go and testify about somebody's situation. All you can do, the best thing you can do, give them a shoulder to lean on, offer them your listening ear, right? And pray for them. Pray for them. Be there for them. Don't be telling anybody else, even the pastor, unless you see it's a matter of life and death, because in the process, that is confidentiality. And when someone who is going through abuse tell you something and then they hear it somewhere, even with the pastor, then they lose that confidence and they will close in and they will die in that situation alone, because they cannot trust you to keep the confidentiality. Thank you, Sam.
Yes, we all heard of the pastor in Florida that was involved in a domestic violence incident. And for me, I think that was the last person you'd have expected to be involved in a domestic situation. So the question is, how many more people do we see out there holding hands, maybe even preaching to us, emulate people in the community that are involved in the domestic violence? So the question I have right now is, could you mention briefly, and I'm assuming domestic violence is both male and female. Assume a woman calls the police, there's domestic violence in the home. Could you run us through the legal process, the restraining order, and that kind of thing? And reverse the role, assume it was the man who called, what would happen?
Okay.
In Kenya, in Kenya, if the man called, the cops would laugh at you. And I hope that in future changes.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
I do hope so. But then, like you said about the pastor situation, that is very common, especially because they have a name to protect, or they feel like they have a name to protect, a church to keep together. So they endure a lot. There's a lot of pastors that you have had committed suicide, killed their spouses, or killed whatever. There's so much stress. And running a church, running a ministry is not an easy job. It is not an easy job. Not because I have one, but I do believe it's not easy. I've been around pastors, and I know it's a very taxing situation. And now, what you need to know is pastors are people too, just like you and me. And if it's just like me getting married to a pastor, that man that will marry me, a pastor is just a title, just like you can become a policeman, just like you can become, of course, it's a calling. They have been called by God, but you cannot accept the fact that they have gone through life. They have acquired issues through life. They have witnessed maybe abuse during their growing up. They deal with a lot of stress, just even running the ministry, and they also have to run the home, okay? And so, of course, they go through a lot of stress. And so if they have not dealt with their issues, if they have not come up with a way of dealing with their stress, Now, if they get stressed in church, they might not show it there, but then they will carry that stress with them. Now, when they come home and the wife adds a little bit on that stress, now they'll burst out and they might do something. Now, they have the same issues we do. Some of them have anger issues. Some of them cannot control their impulses. Some of them have insecurities, right? And that goes not just for them, the pastor and the wife too. So they are dealing with issues that we are dealing with on day-to-day life. But guess their situation is different because they have to keep it away from the people. They feel like they have to keep looking good on the outside, even though inside they are dying and they are killing each other, which is not, I wouldn't think that's God's plan for us, because that's why even when God calls you, he calls you when you're unqualified, but along the way, he teaches you things that you need to work on. Because even if you have anger issues, at some point, and you don't control those issues, at some point, someone in church, in the church community, will do something and you burst out, just like you burst out at home. So you can't hide forever. And that's what happens with some of these pastors. Because like now the one, I don't know what really happened with that situation. I haven't read the whole story. But as you can tell, it was an ongoing issue. They had fought before. She's even trying not to call the police because this guy has no papers. And one thing I know about abusers, they look for people who are merciful, who are good at heart. And so they know chances are you are not going to put me in trouble. They assess you. They know that. But my call for this is, don't endure this, because that is not what is keeping the church together. Of course, there are people who will leave when this comes out in the open, but those are the ones who are supposed to leave. Make sure your marriage is working, because if you're going to be stressed out there and then you come home and get stressed, I don't know how you can lead the flock of God like that. So address the issues within you, address the issues at home, and you even see the church thrive because you're coming from a place of peace. But now this cannot be addressed openly. You have to be honest with yourself as the pastor, as the wife, and realize we have endured this long enough. We cannot continue with this. We have to seek help. You can seek help quietly, but then it starts with recognizing there's an issue, identifying there's an issue, okay? Because now the more you suffer inside, one day you'll break open. There is no human that is beyond that. You will break open one day, if however much you can hold in. Some of them hold in for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but at some point, you will not be able to hold in anymore, and you will open up and something will be wrong. And now maybe your church will end. But before it gets to that, work on the issues within you. Because what I know about domestic violence, like I mentioned, those causes, these are things that we can address. These are things, you know yourself, you know you struggle with anger. You know what are the buttons that your wife can touch and or your husband can touch, and you burst on them. So what about we work on our issues separately? Because this is a personal situation. If I work on my situation and you work on your situation, then when the husband works on themselves, wife works on themselves, at the end of the day, they'll be a better couple. These children are watching this. So even if as the church, we only know when this bursts open and now it's in the open, they have shot each other. These children, for these pastors, they live with these people and they know what happens at home. And then daddy stands in front of people and talks about Jesus. The same Jesus who has not healed their marriage. So it's very hard for these kids, especially, and that's why some of the kids, it's very hard to become pastors themselves, because they can't relate with, what do you mean Jesus works? While you guys have been fighting all along, and now you go and lie to people that God can heal this, can do that, can do the other one. So don't die secretly. Seek help. Seek someone to help you. As the wife, the most especially women, we are good at our mouth. And so majority of us are emotional, verbal, mental abusers. When you're telling your husband things like, what kind of a man are you? That's demeaning. That is bringing their ego down. That hurts them to the core. And so you have to look at yourself too as a woman. Why is this happening? Why is there abuse? Is it because of my mouth? Is it because I say whatever I want? You have to worry about, because the more you say those words to a man, eventually they'll feel like nothing. And now one day they'll snap and they might hit you. And then that might be the end of it, because they might do even worse. I'm not excusing anything. If your wife says things like that, you can easily move away for a while. Seek help maybe separately if you cannot seek help together. And let this person think about what they have been doing. Because sometimes seeing each other too much, you get tired of each other, you get tired of someone saying the same thing over and over again. So when you give each other a break and they see things from your point of view, that might change the situation. So now, about the issue of the law, when you call, and even when that time, the first time he slapped me and I left, there was a restraining order. But guess what? That's just a piece of paper that says you cannot go up to, say, 100 meters around this person. And if you do, they can call us and we will put you in. That's what a restraining orders do. But sometimes when people are determined to hurt you, that will not keep them from doing it. Like you can see that my friend, when she went to jail, when the guy went to jail, she received a restraining order. And this guy came home, took it and tore it and said, call the police again. By the time that morning was up, she was dead. So a restraining order is just a piece of paper that tells you, and of course it's a law, you should adhere to it. But some people are just too messed up to listen to that. So it says, stay away from this person until they come there to the police again and say, lift this ban, right? Lift this restraining order. I think he has changed. I want to give him a second chance because that's what I had to do, right? But even during this time he had a restraining order, he was still coming around. He was still doing whatever. He was still calling, texting. And that's how I knew this restraining order cannot protect me, because this person obviously don't care about that. So you have to know your person. You have to know who you are dealing with. You know, we live with people and yet we don't know them. You have to know who you are around. You have to know what they are capable of. If they say they can kill you, believe it. Even though they haven't done it, believe it. If you know they have hurt you once, they have hit you once, they can do it again. So you can't ignore that. You cannot ignore that. So I hope that answered your question, Sam.
Yes. At this moment, I'll open the group for questions or comments from the panelists. Lift up your hand or ask me to unmute you and I'll give you an open chance to say something. Dr. Muteti, you have a question or something to say?
Yes, I think mine is a comment. First and foremost, just to appreciate Ms. Kiinama, you've just brought it on, because a lot of, and I'll say people now, both men and women, go through a lot of pain in their homes. And as they get out and as they walk around, nobody seems to know. And I'll speak of men, and especially our brothers from Kenya, especially when they come here and they're maybe in their 40s, in their 50s, and they've come with their wives, and maybe they had a very nice career back home in Nairobi, you know, had a nice job. But when they come here, they realize, man, my training cannot help me get a job, a decent job to pay me well. And it seemed to take a little longer for men to turn around compared to their women, to their wives, because their wives will come and realize, okay, man, I really can't do anything. And immediately they decide what to do. Go back to school, get some training, whether it's nursing or whatever it is. And within 2, 3, 5, 4 years, they have a decent, good job, well-paying, while the husband is still McTiming. Yet, remember when he was in Kenya, he was doing pretty well, but now here he becomes now the one asking for the $20 or, for those kind of things. And in the process, the wife turns around and now becomes a real abuser, not physical, but real emotional on the money part and so many other things. And a lot of men go through that pain, a lot of them. And I can speak of that because I've seen it, and it's a question of what can we do as a community, to help ourselves, because we have the resources. Stella, you're out there, and many others, these resources that we can harness together as a community to help each other. And also, speak of the opportunities that each one of us can access, to bring our economic status to a place whereby, it's good for families. And when this is happening, our children are suffering. Right. The children are going through turmoil, and therefore in the process, school, they're not doing well in school, and therefore it starts to bring in a cycle of violence. Yes. Because these kids witness this and they start thinking that it's normal, that they can do that. And therefore, when they get to start having partners or friends, they find themselves almost recycling, almost doing the same thing that they've seen happen in their own homes. And therefore, I believe as a community, we need to break it up. And I'm so glad, Kiinama, you've been able to do this for us, because it has to start from somewhere. And I'm glad that it is happening. And I just personally want to sincerely appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Simon, you want to say something?
All right, thank you. Actually, I was kicked out because someone was calling, and I'm using the same gadgets to dial in. So this is actually an eye opener. Actually, when I saw this invitation, actually when we just started, there is a lady that I invited on the call, and I can see she's on the call, and I really wanted her to hear this story from Stella. She's my friend. And I know she is really benefiting from this call. I also did, I invited her without any notice. I told her there's something very important happening that is of your interest. I want you to listen to this lady. And I can see she's on the call. That is fantastic. I wish I knew more earlier on. I have been following Stella's story even on Facebook, and it is actually touching. And it is actually an eye-opener to so many families and many people who are going through this kind of situation. And it can actually, set some, help us to see some signals that can allude to violence in our marriages. And no one is can say that I can escape violence in marriage or in any kind of relationship. So we are really appreciate what Stella is doing, and I'm very happy about it. Actually, I was wondering the other day, I have gone to very interior parts of Kenya, like Marsabit. I know whether you guys know Marsabit is, and I was like, those people, they don't even know what human rights are, and I was like, how can these kind of people get this kind of awareness? How can we create awareness to those families? Because violence there is very high. It is very high, especially in those interior parts of the world where they say this is not Kenya. You go there and they're asking you, how is Kenya? Violence there is like, an order of the day. And so we have got a long way to go in terms of creating this awareness. And we can appoint ourselves ambassadors, so spreading this gospel. So thank you so much for having me on this call.
Let me just say, a common trend I've seen, and I'm speaking for the men here, is, maybe the man has a green card or is a citizen, and decides it's a time to marry or get engaged. He gets a girl from Kenya. The girl comes here. Everything is rosy, 1 to 2, 3 years. He even decides, oh, I'm going to pay for you to get your RN or BSN class or even LPN. But the minute the girl graduates, there's a new boyfriend or a new man on the line. Such small things do not go very well for the man. And I don't know what men can learn from that trend we've seen, you know, just bringing in someone from Kenya and then you take her to nursing school, and then after nursing school, that's when things change. But one thing I know that has changed, the men have decided to do is, yes, they'll bring, but instead of taking the girl to school, they will go themselves to school first, and then probably after that, educate the girl. But is there anything you could add in terms of conflict resolutions? How do people get there where they're boiling water to, or even acid, pouring it on your face, or getting a gun to shoot you? What makes us get there? Any
I
comment?
think, oh, sorry, Kiinama, go ahead, sorry.
No, I want you to go with that one.
That's okay. You know, I think part of it is stress is real. Money issues are huge and they drive people to crazy stuff. Also, let's be honest, mental illness is a real issue. And we hardly talk about, you know, mental illness, and those are all factors. And I know, for example, you've spoken about, here is a man, he's been in the US, he's gotten a green card or he's become a citizen. And then he goes to Kenya, he brings a girl, he wants to marry her and all that. And then, of course, after she goes to school, she decides, you know what, I'm out. It's tough. But for me, I look at it from the vantage point of how have you been living those 3-4 years? Because you can always see it. It doesn't just happen that one day. You see it, but you keep on hoping that, man, it's going to change. I mean, you actually see it from day one, but you keep on hoping that it's going to change until it doesn't change. So some of these things do not happen just like that. Okay, maybe there are situations whereby it could be hidden, but most of the time, the signs will be there from day one. I mean, think of a young couple. They're courting before they get married. And this young man is actually literally abusing this girl before they even married, but they still continue loving each other, and I'm putting that in quotes. And the girl keeps on hoping, man, he's going to change, it's going to be nice. I mean, really, if he's beating you up and causing you havoc before you even get married, what do you think is going to happen when you actually get to learn his true colors? So some of these signs, we see them, you know, many days, many years before they actually happen. The question is, as a human being, most of the time, we always hope that something is going to change. We hope it, you know, we keep, and that is the good side of us that keeps on telling us, you know what, he is going to be good or she's going to be good. And I think it's high time to either together go for counseling and actually lay out the real issues on the floor, you know, on the table and say, okay, you know what, this is what is happening. So, and then you talk about it. Or you make a decision on how to proceed because it doesn't change, you know, and it's a question of what can we do as a community, as I said, how can we seek help? And again, I know in our community, we have smart people that are, you know, they have experience or they're trained that they can actually come in to help us. Okay, Stella, that was just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, and that's the very truth, because like you said, doctor, listen, you know, like some you said, when we go to nursing school and we become RN, now we become something else. That might have happened, but very rare cases. Because now, as you can hear, when I was going through this abuse, I was in nursing school, and I met this guy while I was already in nursing school. That was my #1 goal. When I land in America, I will go to nursing school, and that's what I did. I came straight and I went into nursing school. And now when I met this person, I'm already inside school. In fact, part of the struggle was for him trying to keep me from completing nursing school. Part of this struggle towards the end is because that's the year I was supposed to graduate. And he had trouble. He kept saying, oh, when women graduate, they act funny. Because that's the thing they put in your mind out there when they are drinking. Now, if I'm in school because I want for me and my husband to have a good life, my family. It's not for me to be able to have another guy out there. And that could be a situation because we are not the same. We have different motives. But for me to be in school, I was in school so that the income that we are getting at the end of the day will be more and we'll be able to do more for us, okay? But now in him, he has this insecurity that when she graduates, she'll be making more money than me. In fact, he was used to compare our paychecks to see who is making more money. You see that kind of insecurity? Now, when I was in school, I endured all this abuse because I couldn't make much. And so when these people bring women from Kenya or wherever you marry from, and then you abuse them all along the way, you are controlling them, you are abusing them. When they get that nursing degree, that is a passport to freedom. And what kind of freedom? Freedom from abuse. And so I cannot tell you that someone will sit there and endure abuse even though they can make it on their own. It's not right. Just because you brought them from Kenya, okay? If you brought them from Kenya, then you should be ready to be a husband. To be ready, you should be ready to hold them the way they are supposed. And if you are taking them to school, don't take them to school because later you start singing to them. Oh, I brought you all the way to Kenya. You are nothing without me. Oh, took you to school, because they say that a lot. Okay. Now, if you're doing that for your wife and you really a grown and mature person, why should you even sing it to them? It's supposed to be to elevate your family. You're not doing this as a favor. You're doing it to bring your family into another level financially. And so when this woman, my situation, yes, in fact, I left after. I was supposed to go back to school and further my education. That did not go well with him because he's already threatened that I'm making more money than him. And so he stood in the way. While the agreement before even I could finish school was, when I finish with this level of classes I'm taking, the level of graduation that I am about to graduate, it's your turn. Now I can take care of the family. Now go to school and further your own education. That was the deal. But when I finished, he was like, I don't want to go to school. I don't feel like going to school. I say, okay, if you don't go to school, that means your income cannot just, jump. So your income will stay there for a while. That means I need to go back to school and further my education. That way it will complement what you'll not be bringing. And that was a problem to him. So you cannot, that's the insecurity I'm talking about. And that's because we grew up watching our fathers as the money makers. But this is a different time. You have to change with the time. You cannot remain in the one level of life while time is changing. Our grandfathers used to be the breadwinner. Our fathers used to be the breadwinner because our mothers, most of us, were not even educated. And so they took all that abuse because they couldn't do anything about it. But this is a different time. You have to wake up. It's a different time. You have to wake up and realize, okay, my wife, if she go to school, realize that this is for your good. This is for the good of the family. It's not for her to boast or making more money. And of course, some of us women have issues. Maybe we will start telling you, oh, I'm making more money than you. Of course, we have issues, right? But now, even if that happens, the bottom line should be, this family is in a better place. We can do more. We can achieve more. We can take our children to better schools. We can live a better life because you're making money, I'm making money, and together we can do this even better. But this mindset, that's another thing I want to point out. Because now when you get your green card, You have been messing around here, and now you know women here are not good. You go and get someone who is unsuspecting in Kenya, someone who is obviously innocent, and now you bring them here thinking you are making it's a wife material. If you're not a husband material, you cannot get a wife material. And even if she was a wife material, she will see you through eventually, and it might not work out. So what I need I wish we should learn about is not going per the trend. The trend is we marry from outside. We marry from looks. Oh, she looks good. I want her to be my wife. Oh, he is making enough money. I want him to be my husband. The person you are dealing with when you get in that marriage is not on the outside. It's not much money they have. It's not how much money they can give you. The person is inside. And so you should worry about who is this person. And when you are dating, when you see those red flags, don't ignore them. I have seen people here, they have been everywhere. They have slept with everyone. And then when it's time to marry, they go home and get someone. Now, it's just a matter of time. After that person you brought here, they hear what you have been doing. Now, do you really think that relationship will stay the same? It will not stay the same. And so that's when abuse comes in. I have seen people who bring those girls from Kenya or from Africa, and now they keep them in the house, they control them. I brought you here, and so you will do what I say do, you will go when I say go. That is abuse. You should not allow it. And even if people are listening from Kenya, don't come here on basis of someone is taking care of you or someone will do this. Make sure this person is right first, because there are so many people who have gone home in coffins. There are so many men that came here looking for greener pastures, but they are locked up in jails. That was not the purpose God had in mind when he brought us in this country, or whenever he moved you from one location to another, that his mind is not set on you going to look for someone or to be in jail there. I would have ended up, if I did not see when the burning was going on, I did this just by reflex because I saw him throw it, and I did this. And I got burnt here, but this burn repressed the water that would have gone into my eyes. And what did the doctor say? When I went into the hospital, more than my burns, they were concerned about my eyes. Because if that hot water went to my eyes, that was instant blindness. Now imagine me. I came here, I left my family, and they were happy, expecting me to succeed in life. And now I'm being taken back home blind. I cannot see. Just because I got married. I mean, when did marriage become a crime? When did it become a crime that you can go in and you can come out dead or disabled or in jail? We really have to wake up. We really have to look at this thing and see. Now, man, I don't even know. I'm single and I don't look forward to marriage because now, of course, I have experienced it. Yet, I know there are good men out there. I know there are good women out there. But we have toiled and soiled this institution of marriage so much because of our inner issues. So it's time, I would call for everyone, look at yourself, man. Look at yourself within yourself. What is this issue you are dealing with? What's causing this abuse in the home? And if you deal with your own issue, your spouse deal with their own issue, these children, they are relying on us. They are tomorrow. We are making a foundation about their future. You can take them to Harvard. You can take them wherever you want to take them to school. But at the end of the day, behavior-wise, they will act like they saw you act in homes. So they can be a CEO of a big company, but when they get angry, they will slap someone and they will leave that big post and they'll go to jail. So we have to make sure that our children, what they are watching, is worth watching. And what you are building, don't worry about taking them to the best schools. If emotionally, if you are not taking care of them and their mind, and the area where you have the nest, that's their homes, they see all this chaos. They cannot be that good. You don't expect that to happen. So I think we have to learn that my RN is my freedom from abuse. And because now I can afford to live by myself without anybody abusing me. But I don't need to be alone with my RN if I have a good man. The only thing I can't endure is abuse. And if that's the case, then you continue bringing, you can bring as many as you want, but they will keep leaving you until you work on yourself.
Thank you. Big Bogo, you have a question?
Yes, I do. First of all, Stella, thank you very much for your courage, speaking on your own behalf. I have 3 comments. First of all, Stella, you're a beautiful lady, and I have a single guy that I can hook you up with. I saw you when you came to our church, St. Stephen's. I think that was it early this year or last year, and I read your book, but I never got a chance to finish your book. But you have endured a lot, and you deserve a good man. And next time you come to Boston, I'll hook you up with a friend who is looking for a single lady. So now the only problem will be the location, whether it's Texas, I think you're in Texas, and the guy is in Boston. Having said that, I have a question for you, Stella, which you'll answer after I make my comment. Do you think cheating on your husband or cheating on your wife can be regarded as domestic abuse or domestic violence? So take a note on that. Do cheating on your wife or cheating on your husband, can it be regarded as domestic abuse? And my last comment would be, we talked about how men come in this country. Most of them, maybe they don't even mess up, but they don't trust the women in the USA. And they'll say, you know what, let me go in Kenya, maybe I'm on a green card. Let me link up with a chick maybe I went to school with and bring her over here because I don't trust the women here. So and I have said this over and over, especially I'm an MC. And when I MC weddings, I always make jokes and say, hey, for those men who bring women from Kenya, those women who come here, you take them to school, and eventually they will see this is not the kind of a man I wanted in life. So I've always told men over and over, especially our Kikuyu culture men, because that's the most group that we interact with when we have functions. I always tell them, you are not his father to go bragging, oh, oh, I made her to go to school. No, do not do that. Make sure that you better marry the devil that you know in the USA than bringing an angel from Kenya, and then this angel comes here, goes to school, and then she realizes, oh, you know what, Bogo brought me, but Bogo is not the kind of a man that I was looking for. Maybe Bogo is skinny.
What? How do you spell swim?
Somebody got a mute. So that's my comment. And for the men here in the USA, we need to come up with a plan of how majority of the men can go back to school, so that at the end of the day, you don't have to do like Stella's ex used to do, compare paycheck by paycheck, or you are making more money than me. As a man, you don't have to make more money than your wife, but you should also make substantial income so that even your wife can say, okay, you know what, I'm making $100,000, you are making $90,000. So I always encourage the men, please do something for yourself. Go back to school or do a trade, open up a business so that your income can be comparable with a BSN, RIN. I know most of the men, they don't go to nursing school. Start a business, bring some income so that you can compare it with your wife. But I've always been a big discourager and against men who go to Kenya and bring those young girlfriends, beautiful girlfriends, and after 2-3 years, the girlfriend is hopping all over with with men who have money and comparing you with other men. So having said that, I would like Stella to answer my question about infidelity in marriage, whether that is abuse or it's not abuse. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thank you for the compliment too. I appreciate that. So what cheating does, because now when people start cheating, what that does, it affects the trust. It affects the trust in the home. Now, when I know the infidelity is involved, that also changes the dynamic of our family. Because now it will increase the stress level. Like I said earlier, of all these things that increase the stress level can bring about domestic violence, because now you're dealing with someone that you cannot trust. Because when you break trust in this area, especially in the area of infidelity, then what other area can I trust you in? You know, because now you have brought distrust in the family, because now this woman or this man has to worry about, am I safe? Because the reason why I would want a man is safety. And safety comes all over, and especially if you have to share our internal intimacy with someone else, that breaks the code, you know. And so don't be shocked when infidelity is involved, that it will change everything in the family, because now this woman who has been cheated on will not trust you. When you are working, especially if you are working with people, and most of us work with people, and there are women involved, and the woman knows that you cannot be trusted among women. Now, she has no peace wherever she is. And if the husband, the same way, she knows you cannot control yourself around other men, he can't really trust you among other people. You know what I'm saying? And so now that increases the chances of abuse, because now all they need to see, it will increase the insecurity level. Like now, that's why I was saying about people looking up when they are waiting for you to leave your phone, and they will start looking through your phone. Who have you been talking to? Who have you been, you know, involved with? And so how that can bring abuse is because it will increase the insecurity level. And now this person cannot really trust you. They cannot really rely on you for safety, because most of the women especially, they want a man who they can feel safe with, and infidelity breaks that safety. Now I don't feel safe around you anymore, because I feel like I'm not the only one, and every woman wants to be the only one. Okay, and that is supposed to be the rule. Like, dude, you married me, I'm supposed to be the only one in your life. So entertaining other relationships, entertaining others, people around you, is not the best deal. And so if you change the dynamic of the family, it will change the dynamic of the relationship. And it might end up being that, because if they caught you, especially some of us women don't know how to let go. So if you cheated one time, you will hear it again and again and again. Okay, so I would suggest stay away from it. Stay away from it. Work on those issues, because that's also some internal issue. Self-control. You should be able to say, no, I'm married, I cannot entertain this, I cannot entertain that. So, but I would like for doctor to address that.
I mean, cheating is cheating, period. There are no two ways about it. After then, I mean, why you married? You know, so it should not happen. And if you're doing it, then you're not doing yourself a service, you're not doing your family a service. And just think about your own kids knowing that you're cheating on their mother. I mean, what does it do to them? So these are things that I think we should just be very clear about, and just say, you know what, it's black and white, it shouldn't happen, period. I mean, there shouldn't be any debate about it, and that's what I'll say. Because if you actually decided to get married, then you made a decision on really what you wanted in life. Once you made that decision, then you should be bold enough to be comfortable in your own and with your own life with your wife. So I don't think it really needs to be called anything else. It is just cheating. And cheating is not right. When people cheat, they go to jail. or they get fired, or they get, you know, if you're working, if you have a job and you cheat, that ends up becoming detrimental to your business, to the business where you're working, you get fired. So, I mean, all I can say is that, please, I don't think we should really, and especially when we are discussing this, because again, cheating, what does it do? It brings mental torture.
Right.
It brings a lot of psychological pain. And what does that end up becoming? Because of the stresses, and as Stella just put it, because of those stresses, guess what will happen? You start arguing, and then of course violence starts to come in. And do you know where the source is? The source is the cheating. That's really where it began from. So all I can say is that it shouldn't happen if you consider yourself married, you know, and there are no two ways about it, you know, and especially, I mean, really, why do it if somebody, you told them, hey man, I love you so much, and you're cheating, and you come back home and you smile at them and this, come on now, give me a break. It shouldn't happen anyway. So that's all I'll say.
Very good. I'll ask two more questions from, we'll take two more questions from the viewers, and then we call it a day. But just before that, you can also mention, as they're asking question, you can also mention, are more educated people less likely to be involved in domestic violence as compared to other counterparts?
Well, domestic violence is the one thing that sweeps across all lines. Like, there is no education, there is no money, there are no any status, any economic status, across every economic status, across, even, it doesn't matter if you are the most educated person or the richest person, it's everywhere. This is one issue that affects everybody in the whole world. And you won't believe so many people who are top government officials, but they are abusive. You won't believe some of our presidents of different countries, yet their wife cannot breathe, yet they live under abuse even themselves. So this does not, it does not count, it doesn't matter, because like I said, it's an internal issue. It is an internal issue. And so, like I just told you, you can take this kid to Harvard, they can be super educated, they can be very good at school, geniuses, right? But then the internal engine, the hard drive is messed up. And so that is what they will reflect outside. So it doesn't matter who they marry, whether they are the billionaire, could be Bill Gates, but if he's not right internally, he's abusive. And so that's why I really think abuse is not an issue about gender. It's not a gender against gender. It's not female against male or male against female. And when we look at it like that, that's why it has not been dealt with for centuries and centuries. It has not been killed because we look at it as a gender issue. I believe this is an issue against humanity. Okay, because now if God brought us here for a purpose, the things we go through when we are growing up, some of us who are fighting are just fighting because that's what we saw growing up. We grew up in a dysfunctional environment. And so that's all we know. So that's what we transmit. That's what manifests, because that's who we are inside. But now God meant for you to do something in this life. But the devil, believe it or not, we have a devil, and that's the enemy of your purpose. And he will stand in your way to make sure you will not fulfill that purpose. But how does he do that? He will use issues you suffered in your childhood. He will use this dysfunctional thing you picked up when you are growing up. And now imagine, especially in my situation, if I use myself again as the example here. Now, these are two people who moved from all the way from Kenya. And we came here to make our life better. We didn't even know each other before we came here. We met here. So obviously he came here with an agenda to make his life better. I came here with the same agenda to make my life better. And God had a reason why he allowed us to come in America. But then when we get here, we look around and see what do people do in America? How do people function when they get in America? And so we get swept into that system. Or you can't survive by yourself. So get married, because that was one reason I had in my mind. I can't pay all these bills and still make it in life. So when the idea of marriage came through, it sounded very well, because I'm like, okay, I'll be able to save some money, not knowing I'm going into a worse situation. I'd rather have stayed alone. Now, when we came together, we have now, marriage takes a lot, and marriage is very involving, a lot of energy, emotional, mental. You have to be fully involved for it to work. Now, you came here and you had an agenda. My agenda was to make my life better, to improve my family, where I come from. Now he had his own agenda, but when we met, we had to compromise. And that means let go of some of the things that had brought me here, and him too, so we can build a home, okay? But now, because we were not ready for that, and because the things that drove us to this marriage were not right, the motive was not right, even though it might be right in one person, but then the timing is not right. Because if you make an omelette and you mix 2 eggs and 1 egg is messed up, that omelette is not good for you to eat. And so if you put 2 people together, even if one motive is right, the other person had another kind of motive, or they are not right, then that cannot be a marriage. At some point it will break. Now, what we come here to do, God brought us here for a reason. God does not just open the borders for you to come here and enjoy life in America. All these things we do here, they are back in Kenya. We can become nurses in Kenya. We can become truckers in Kenya. We can do all these things we are doing there. There are jails there. If we are coming here to go to jail, there are jails in where we are coming from, right? So my point is, when we came here, God had a purpose in mind why he allowed us to come here. But when we got here, we did not seek his presence. Just like me, I did not seek God's mind. I did not seek God's idea. Why did you bring me here? And follow in the footsteps he will give me. Yet I went on my own and decided getting a guy would help me a great deal. Because of course I have someone to share bills with. I have someone to call to tell me they love me. And so I took matters into my own hands. Just most of us do that. It doesn't matter where you are, they do that. Now, when we do that, and we take detours we were not supposed to take, we involve people that were not supposed to be in our lives, and that messes up with our purposes. Where was I going with this anyway? So what I was saying is, it's an issue against humanity, because now when this guy burnt me, he was supposed to go to jail for 10 years. He was sentenced to 10 years in jail. Now tell me, if you are 30 and you're sentenced to 10 years, by the time you come out of jail, you are 40. Where do you start from? Because now you are from jail. In your records, especially here in America, they are indicating you are there with a felony, we did this. All that will alter your life here. Now, you sent me to hospital, and that was not part of God's plan for him to bring me here. And so 3 destinies were affected by that very fateful thing. That fateful day, it affected 3 destinies: my destiny, his destiny, and our child's future. Because she was supposed to be taken to a foster home, because he has clearly showed he cannot be a father. He cannot be trusted with this child. I, on the other hand, am in a hospital with wounds that we don't know how long they will last to heal. And so this child, in fact, the child services were all over there trying to take my child and take her to foster home. Now, imagine 3 people who came here to look for greener pastures. One of them is in hospital, disfigured. One of them is in police custody, supposed to serve 10 years in jail. And one of them is in a foster home, foster care. Now, imagine how those 3 lives have been affected. So every time we look at domestic violence as, oh, it's crimes against men, it's crimes against women, we will never win this battle. We have to look at it as a bigger force that is keeping us from reaching our purposes. We have to know, and that's why it's an internal issue, because those things you picked along the way, people that rejected you, people that abandoned you, abuse you suffered growing up, you have to deal with that even before you go into your own marriage, because you will take those issues and they will go into your marriage with you. And your marriage cannot be successful either. Even if you live together, there are people who live together, they celebrate anniversaries, but they stopped sleeping together years ago. Yet they say, oh, it's our 20-year anniversary. That is not a marriage. Okay, now we have to look at it as an issue where this is against our purpose. It is against it, and we have to fight it. And the best thing, if you're listening to this and you are alone, you are single, like I am, right? Before I get to that place where I marry again, I have to go within me and deal with the issues within me. Is it anger? I have anger issues. Is it rejection that I suffered? I have to heal that before I go into the next thing. I move on to the next thing. Even the pain that I suffered through this abuse, I have to heal that before I even try to go to the next marriage. So I hope that answered Sam.
Yes, thank you very much. Caroline, are you there? Caroline, are you there? Viva, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Just any comments, any thoughts? Actually, we'll take that as the last questions. Good to see you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you so much, first of all, Sam, for setting up this venue for us to hear from Stella. And Stella, thank you dearly for just being open and honest with your experience. It has definitely educated all of us and shown us, you know, the signs and what we would do in such a situation. But you have added a voice to this issue in a different perspective, in your own unique experience. And it's just amazing to hear what you've gone through. You've been able to come through it wonderfully well. And I hope your daughter is also doing well, by the way. I know you said the man went to jail 10 years. How's your daughter doing?
She's doing great. In fact, she turned out very well. I thank God for that.
Amen. Amen. Praise God.
Yes.
May God bless you. Thanks so much for sharing.
I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Sam.
Welcome. Any last comment, Wende or Susan? Samthugi? Caroline? Ushiri? GK? Any comments before we close? Okay. My last question is, what makes it hard to live? And then even after sometimes you've left, some men or women still come back, and that's when like they impose their whatever happens. Like, okay, you've decided I'm leaving, but after a few months, you decide, oh, let me go back to this man, and that's the time he decides to do the unthinkable. What makes the cycle of domestic, what makes you tolerant? Like, a lot of people, instead of leaving and running away, they kind of tolerate and stay in the marriage until like you're dead or something. What makes it so hard to call it quit?
I think that is a good question, because most of the people, by the time, it takes a lot of courage. I need you to know it takes a lot of courage for someone who is in an abusive relationship to leave it. I shared how I left, and even between the time that we got together and the time that he abused me physically, I tried and figured in my mind, and many times I structured a way to get out of this marriage. But one thing about being in an abusive relationship or marriage is they work on you. This mental and emotional abuse is a way of messing up with your internal system. And so when, like he used to tell me things like, you can't survive without me. You can't make it without me. And he keeps saying that over and over again. They show you how incapable you are without them. And now remember also sometimes there is children. And so you are depending on these two incomes to run the home. And so when they say that, you start calculating your money and you see, yeah, by the way, if I leave, then my kids and I will suffer because he brings me this much money, and that's where the R&D comes in, because now that's when you have some financial stability. But now, even without financial stability, you have been drained emotionally. You have been drained mentally. You don't feel good enough. You don't feel worthy. You don't feel strong enough. You feel like you are leaning on this person, and just the thought of being on yourself scares you. And so that's what emotional and mental abuse does to a victim. It demoralizes you. It shows you you're not good enough. It shows you you cannot make it without this person. And so you see many people leave and come back, because now leaving, at the end of the day, when you make up your mind to leave, you must know it will affect your living status. It will change, because if you had a home or a house together, right? And that's one reason so many people are enduring it, because they have bought a home, they have bought a house together, and now you know you cannot afford to pay this house by yourself. But is living in this big, beautiful house in abusive relationship, marriage, better than you being in a smaller place, but peace, in peace, with your children thriving, with your children living in a peaceful environment? So so many people have exchanged the peace of mind, they have exchanged their personal happiness for big homes, big cars, because they know they cannot afford this by themselves. And yes, if you finally move out, you will have to downgrade. Things will change, but then you have to value yourself, personal happiness, the peace of mind, the children's mind and life more than living in that beautiful mansion or whatever place you live, but in an abusive relationship. So you have to be sure, what do I want? What do I want for my children? What do I want for me? And so some of us go back because we feel like, oh man, my children, I'd rather they stay there because their father is supplying, because they are having this good life. But you're not doing those kids any favor. I have to say that clearly enough for you to understand. The child is much better, because you have never seen a child because they grew up in poverty, they are dysfunctional in life. But when they grow up in an abusive environment, they will be dysfunctional in life. They will be dysfunctional. What poverty can bring out from a child is a desire to achieve. But what domestic violence can bring into a child is dysfunction. And so they will be acting on impulse, just like daddy and mommy did. They will not be able to control themselves. They will be fearful. They will not be able to pursue life that they're supposed to, because the environment was dysfunctional. So I would rather you step down. Don't worry about who will speak. Don't worry about who will laugh at you. Don't worry about things like that. Worry about your personal happiness and peace of mind. Your children, they will thank you for that. I have seen people years and years after. I've seen even celebrities, even someone you know very well, someone like Tyra Perry. He has written a book, and I read that book, how his mother endured abuse. And he cannot understand why the mother did not leave the father. Yet in the mind of the mother, she's thinking, I'm staying here for my children. let me tell you, you're not staying there for your children. You're staying there for you because you're afraid people will judge you. You're afraid of the guilt and shame. You're afraid of all these things, but none of that counts when it comes to your life, when it comes to your children's life. Move a little bit, separate. Especially if this person noticed that they have identified that they have a problem, and so they are working on it. But if the worst comes to the worst, I'd rather you downgrade, you go into a small apartment and start there. Because when a man or a woman steps out of your life, I can promise you, because it has happened to me, God steps in and he becomes your husband. He becomes your wife. He holds you together and he takes you from one level to another. You cannot rely on a man or a woman. You have to rely on God. Put your trust in God. Know that you are eating and drinking not because someone is providing, but because God loves you and he's providing, and he will provide whether you are with that person or you are not. So don't exchange your peace of mind, the children's happiness, for temporary comfort. So I hope that answered, Sam.
Thank you. Big Bogo, are you there? And then we summarize. I think we only have like
yes. I only take 2 minutes. So Stella, thank you for elaborating that. I raised my hand up before you answered all that. My concern is, and I'll give an example. There is this couple that used to live in Lynn, Massachusetts. It's in the public domain. I'm not going to mention their names, but you know the story. It happened in 2007. The guy killed the girlfriend, and then the guy went to jail for life, but the guy committed suicide last year, but one in jail. It's all over public domain. It's in the news. So it's not like something secretive out there. So the guy who killed the girlfriend happened to be my childhood friend. We grew up together back in Getcha. So now, at one point they fought and they kept fighting every day. They used to have these issues every day. The guy is in jail because of domestic violence, and I'll go bail him out. So one time we sat down with my 2 other village elders, and we talked to these gentlemen, and I said, you know what, my brother, I think it's time you move out. Leave this lady alone. This lady is not meant for you. Why do you have to go to jail 3 times? They have kicked you out of the RN program at Northern Essex Community College because you say you are not abusing her, but according to the police report, you are an abusive boyfriend or an abusive husband. So the guy said, you know what, take me to my house, let me get my stuff out, and I'm moving out. So me and one of the Pastor Hollis, who used to live here, we took him to his house in Lynn. He picked up everything that he wanted. That was on a Saturday. Everything went well. This pastor hosted. The guy said, you know what, you can live with me as long as you want until you find your own apartment. All right. So the guy went, we picked up the things, where we go. 2 weeks after, anybody in Massachusetts, if you know Square One Mall in Saugus, I used to live in Everett. So I happened to go to Square One Mall in Everett. Guess whom I saw there holding hands? This gentleman and the lady. I was like, what the F? What is happening? I thought these two are separated. I talked to this guy 2 days ago. He told me he's even deleted the numbers. They're not communicating. Do you know what the lady told me when he saw me? He said, oh, you know what? You are the person who want me to separate with the love of my life. I said, hey, my sister, listen, that is not my aim, but you guys were not meant for each other. And this guy has been jailed for 3 times. They kicked him out of the RN program. So whatever you say, I don't think this will end up well. He said, the lady told me, Bogwa, keep off from our affairs. I said, okay. That was 2005. Do you know I never spoke to that guy again? The guy tried to communicate to me. The guy tried to reach out to me. I said, I'll never, ever get involved myself with that couple's issues. 2 years down the road in 2007, the boyfriend kills the girlfriend. So my question to you, Esther, To you,
Stella.
Stella,
Stella.
when is the right time to pull out when there is domestic violence? Is it when he slaps you the first time? Is he or when she pours hot tea on you? When is the best time to pull out? When you notice there is domestic violence or domestic abuse, because some people want to stick there, as you say, oh, I'm staying here because of my children. I'm staying here because of the stigma that we have in the Kenyan community. Oh, I don't want a broken family. I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna stay here. I want my kids to grow. I want this man to educate my children. I want this woman to look after my children. So my question to you is, especially in your situation, how come you never pulled out? And I'm not blaming you, my sister, no. How come you did not pull out when he slapped you for the first time? Thank you.
Thank you, Bogwa. Thank you so much. So, like I said, it's very tricky. But if I knew, because for me, I did not pull out because I didn't know what I was dealing with. Like I said, I don't know if you were there when I was telling my story. It happened that when I was in the middle of school when we met, and it's during this class that teachers started pointing out what are the signs of domestic violence. And when they were mentioning them, the teacher was mentioning them, that's when it started dawning on me, man, this thing I couldn't point it, this thing I couldn't tell what it was domestic violence. So I'm inside it. And like I said, I tried. In fact, I tried to move, and I was trying to come, because I was in the South, I was trying to come to Houston. That's the only place I knew someone. And I organized with a friend who was driving trucks. And I said, because I don't have anything anyway, I don't have much, I just came from home. I said, I'm gonna transfer my school. And I spoke with the lady that I knew in Houston. And I said, can I come and be your roommate for a while I get myself together? Because I need to leave this guy. And she agreed. And so, of course, I don't have much money. He controls the money. And so I agreed. I looked for someone, a friend who was, I'm both mutual friend, but I didn't even know they knew each other. And so I asked him, because he drives trucks. I said, how often do you go to Houston? And I was gonna ride in his truck and drive me to Houston so I can come and start over. That was my number one plan of leaving. But I don't even know how they got to talk about it. And so when I got home that evening and I'm planning to leave tomorrow, this guy got on his knees and begged and cried and said, I will change. And you will hear that a lot when you're in an abusive relationship. And so I did try to leave, but like I said, they tramp on your mind. They make you think you're not good enough, like they are the best thing you ever have. And so that affects your mind. You have to look around and say, okay, there are kids involved. I am in school. How do I even go to transfer? And I was in a different situation because I had the right papers. Now imagine someone who don't have the papers and you're depending on this person, to supply. Maybe the house is on his name, and now leaving that place means you don't have anywhere to live, and unless you have someone else to host you. So there's a lot of factors that contribute to people staying. If it's not emotional draining and abuse, then it's maybe the surrounding circumstances, the papers, the school, the children, and all those things. There are so many things that make people. But when you should pull out should be now I know, and now I can advise you. You said these people are not even married. They were boyfriend and girlfriend. Now this is a girlfriend and a boyfriend who clearly have issues, and they are abusing each other even as girlfriend and boyfriend. That means there's obviously red signs. They are right there staring at you in the face. And if you ignore that, now the end result can be just like what happened. Now this guy came here, he enrolled in an RN program, but he couldn't get himself out of this abusive relationship. So there's also a big chance that this lady was involved in abusing too, maybe emotionally, and maybe this guy couldn't take it anymore. I don't know what really happened, but there's a lot that goes on in a domestic situation to make people stay. But what I said, most of us is fear of what people will say. And people will say, but news can only be breaking news for a little while. Then something else will happen, it will be the breaking news. So you can't stay there, and I know I stayed there. That's why I'm outspoken, because I don't want the things that kept me in this situation to happen to you. People will speak, but guess what? People will speak also when you get killed. And they will say how stupid you are that you did not live when you were supposed to. Now, when you have died out of that, remember how many people have suffered because of you not making decisions. So when you see these things, don't take them lightly. When people are demeaning you, pulling you down, even another form of abuse you don't always see and you can't hear is neglect. Someone is always gone, right? And so they are either with their male friends or female friends, and they leave you alone in the house. That's also a form of abuse. And so we have to take these signs seriously. Do not ignore it. If it means getting out of the marriage until you are sure, and don't just listen to someone and say, I have changed. Well, how have you changed? Did you attend any kind of therapy? How are you changing? Because if you're changing, then there should be something to show that you're really working towards changing. If you have anger issues, well, how are you dealing with that? Because you can't come to me and tell me you have changed without any evidence. Because after some time, and situation will arise again, and you will jump up on me like you did before. You will hit me like you did before. So I can't say, let's say ati just because mtu anekuja amesema ati I've changed, you go back together. Anybody can say that. And
Yes.
don't take this thing easily. I'm sorry, Simon, let me say this clearly. Because now, when you are single, and I know someone who is single will listen to this, just because someone is nice is overrated. You can't just you can't tell who someone is by being nice. Anybody can be nice when they want something. So when they want to marry you, when they want to sleep with you, when they want or whatever they want, they will be nice. But you will never know the true colors until you know this person deep inside. So don't be fooled by those nice gestures. Most men who are abusive, most women who are abusive are very charming. They look happy, they look nice from outside. You can guess. So thank you, Sam. I hope
Yes.
that answered your question, Bogwa.
Yes. Let me just add on one or two things Bogwa mentioned. Yes, the couple had a lot of difficulty. The guy had a lot of anger issues. He killed the girlfriend, and it was a very sad story because there were two kids left, two beautiful kids left. The guy got jailed, I believe maybe for life or something. He had almost like 3 or 4 visitors a whole year in jail. So a friend of mine went to visit him and asked the guy, what really happened? I know you have some anger issues, but could you tell me what really happened? The guy said he's sorry, but the girl drove him to the wall. But he said he's sorry. So I must also add that sometimes it takes two people to tango, but we also have to be wise. When we see one person is very reactive, you don't have to go to his level. You can mellow down just for the sake of peace. So I think also conflict resolution is key when it comes to domestic violence. And then to end the story, the guy, it was too much for him in jail. Segregation is not a good thing. He ended up committing suicide, and both of them lost. They were in love, but they did not take care of their anger and their issues. The lady died, was killed, and the guy killed himself. So sad story. And thank you, Bogo, for bringing it up. People try to hide things, but these things are in our communities. But it's a good thing we are giving voice to this great conversation. Bogo, did you want to say something, and then we close?
No, thank you, Stella. So I think to conclude about when to pull out, I think because domestic abuse or domestic violence happens mostly to women versus men. But most of the men, they blame the women for driving them to that rage whereby I can slap you. Because I mean, Stella, I'm not blaming you, but maybe did you do something to anger this guy? Did you come home and throw your paycheck on the table and say, I don't know his name, but let me call him Kamau. Hey, Kamau, look at your paycheck, look at my paycheck. You need to do more. And then the guy started being jealous and say, hey, oh my God, we met, I'm helping you in school, I'm paying the bills when you're in school, and you dare come and say, look at my paycheck, look at your paycheck. Maybe now I'm the queen of the house, I'm the king, I'm the man of the house versus he is the man of the house. So I think the best thing for us to do is to know whom to love. And when you see things are changing, I'm not an advocate of divorces, but I think when you see things are not working, especially physical abuse, I think people should pull out right away instead of waiting and be in a situation whereby somebody is pouring acid or a cup of tea. But let's also ask ourselves, when you met this guy was in love with you. This guy was a dilly-dally to you. What changed him to become abusive? I think it can be an issue for next time. What drives people to abuse their spouses? Or how does it lead to, because I don't understand. Myself, I'm married. My wife has never abused me. I've never abused her. We always have disagreement here and there. All those fights will be there, but it has never been physical, whereby we are calling cops on each other. When I landed in America many years ago, almost 25 years ago, I met this gentleman and he told me, Sam, if cops ever comes to your house because your wife called them for you, there is no marriage. Those cops will come back over and over and over again. So I've always been scared of cops, not that, but my wife is loving to me and I love her so much. But Stella, I would like you maybe to address this next time because we are running out of time. What drive or what brings that physical abuse? Is it the woman is priding herself and making more money than you, or I'm beautiful, I can get any man I want? Thank you.
Before Stella answers, Pink Studio, can you say something? Carol, can you say something? And Susan, can you say something? And we only have 3 minutes, then we call it a day. Pink Studio.
Thank you, Sam. I was not able to talk earlier, but now I have my break. Earlier, I'd mentioned that one of the biggest challenges is our culture and how we are socialized from Kenya, that like housework and helping in the house, those are not considered jobs that men should do at home. But when we get here, because of the system and the schedules, there is also that need of adjustment, and it's usually difficult for many couples. And somebody mentioned earlier that abuse does not also mean being very violent, aggressive. Some people just decide to withdraw and not be emotionally engaged. So they are just very passive in the relationship. They are not hurting you in any way, beating you or being aggressive, but they are checked out. So that point was, I've seen a friend go through that, and it can also be equally harmful. So I think for today, that's what I would add. And maybe next time you can talk more about passiveness in marriage, not being involved, not being engaged. And also you can talk about, is there a way that when people migrate, especially from our African countries, can get that support they need to transition? Because if it is addressed earlier, then we are likely to have less cases. And again, thank you for putting this together.
Pink Studio, and then Susan. Susan, are you ready?
Yeah, I greet you, everybody. I came in a little late, but my answer to Mbogwa is, if you want the time to get out is when you first see the first red flags. Don't wait there and collect them like you're gonna go sell them to the market. I did the same mistake. I've been through domestic violence myself. Stella is my good friend. She can attend to that. But the first moment that you know about the domestic violence, the moment he threatens you, the moment he says you are stupid or something like that, you should be getting your stuff out because he is not good. And another thing that keeps us from being in that marriage is, like myself, I had told him that I don't want to be raising my kids from a single parent. And he used that against me so many times that in my mind, I was like, oh, I promised I would never do that. So I stayed there so long because I felt like I owe it to my children, and came later to pay the price for it. My son became very violent and very aggressive to a point where he needed counseling to get out of it when I left our marriage. So for my point is, if you see one red flag, get out. Don't stay there. You can do a whole lot better all by yourself. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you. Pink Studio, you want to say something?
Yes, real quick. Can everybody hear me?
And tell us where you're logging in from.
Oh, I'm logging in from Boston, from Saugus, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this. It's really, I'm really happy. And I want to thank you for putting it together. I thank the woman, Stella, for being open and sharing and being a voice for a lot of us. Believe it or not, there's more people that are still silent about this. But my point, because I know this has been going on and I don't want to extend the time. This is something that we need to continue. But what I want to say is a lot of, like she rightly said, this is not a gender specific. It can happen to both women and men. But what I have noticed, originally I'm from Nigeria. And what I've noticed is that across the board, a lot of trainings, a lot of workshops, a lot of people talking about how women should treat their husbands. And I see that a lot of more women in that field talking to other women how to treat women, how to treat their husbands. But we don't have any man, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have the same in that side where a male that is doing it right, keeping their marriage, doing the right thing, talking to other men how to treat a woman in the house. And I'll give an example real quick. It's a very recent one that just happened. I belong to a church, and we look at our pastor and the wife as our mommy and daddy in the Lord, and they've been married for a long time. I happen to be working with the woman, like a PA or something. And this man is great at taking care of the wife, from what we see. And I was in the office, taking care of her, getting her ready for the service. The man, the pastor, came from his office and asked the woman, "Where is your glasses?" And we reach out to the bag. Do you know this man took the glasses out and cleaned her glasses for her? I'm just using this as an example of little things, how a man treats a woman, that it would be, I don't even know, it would take a woman that is really sick to be treated the right way to complain about that man. So in other words, we need more men talking about educating other men how to take care of a woman, how to be the real man. And I see that a lot of, the few ones that are doing it right, because of the culture that another sister mentioned here, because of our culture, they feel ashamed or they feel less of a man to come out there to other men to tell them what they are doing right and why their marriage is successful.
Thank you. Thank you, Pink Studio. You're finished, right?
Yes, I am. For now, I will connect with you, and I'll connect with you on Facebook.
Okay, thank you so much. So yeah, that is very, very, very important to bring that up. We do need men at the forefront, talking openly about this, and it's not now, especially some of us, those of us who are Christians, we should not be dictated by our traditions or our cultures, because once you become a Christian, your culture changes, automatically changes. And now your culture moves from being, oh, I'm from this community or this tribe, and this is how we do things. It goes from being that is where you came from, but now your culture starts to be governed by the word of God, right? And now, so you cannot look at culture to shut you up. You cannot, especially men, we really need men who can stand up. Even our own pastors, they usually don't open up with these issues, usually because some of them are going through it themselves. And so we need men, and Sam, maybe you can lead this crew. You stand up and speak to men and about how to treat, because we are told over and over again, be submissive, be submissive. But then if you submit to a man who have anger issues, that is not submissive, that is slavery, because they will burden you down, they will push you down. And so I like the way she said that it's very important, even though we are going to workshops, even though we are going to places where they are telling us how to treat the men. If I treat you like a king, but you treat me like a slave, that is not a marriage, that's a master-slave relationship. And no one needs that. No one wants that, right? So even if we teach, and now men are mad because we as women are being empowered. How about you empower yourself? How about one of you start up and empower the other men? Because then it's an imbalanced situation where women are empowered, we know our rights, we know what we want, we know we cannot be treated like this, but men are still stuck in that tradition that says if a woman does not submit, slap her. If a woman does this, hit her. If a woman does that, it's not okay. And so we do need men. And if you want, I do not mind speaking to men too, because I'm not speaking from a gender perspective. I'm speaking from a Christian perspective. This is not the role of a man in a marriage, to abuse a woman. And so, Sam, please, I wish you would have something like this, but have men address, because that also helps with healing. Say like we have something like this, but this men, is specifically for men, being told, being spoken to, and them sharing their opinion. That's a place where men can open up. Things like Bogwa is asking, those questions he's asking, those are questions within the mind of men, but they don't have anyone to answer, because most men don't share these things. They are closed in, they hold on to their opinions, to their issues, they hold on to the pain they are going through. And that is one thing that causes people to snap, because now you've been holding on to this pain, you've been holding on to this thing, and now one day she'll do something, even something very little, and you will snap, you will jump out, on her, you jump on her. So I really wish, even if you do this thing and invite men, let them share their opinion, because they are coming from it's coming from within them, the pain they suffer. If we don't listen to what they say, if we don't pay attention to how they are thinking and tell them that thinking right there is not right, you cannot make a family thinking like that. You have to change your thinking. So they go to the places where they go to drink, and that's where they get their information from. And so they go there, and one of them says, oh, my wife cannot do this. I slap her, I hit her, and you go and hit your own wife. Now, guess what happens? She calls the police on you, or she gets out of the marriage. Now your marriage is broken, yet the very person that says he's been slapping or beating his wife, they look happily married. So we have to create environments like this, or in workshops that teach men See, not everything you hear out there is right. Your mind might be, your hardware might be right, might be wrong, and now you're operating from a messed up hardware, and now you think it should work because it worked, you think it worked for someone else. So we do need to educate men. We do need to let men open up and spill their whatever they are dealing with. I have personally been able to speak with men through my messenger, and they will open up to me, and just opening up is already a healing process, because the more you hold on to that pain, one day it will burst open and you will do the unthinkable. So allow situations and look for, I like your creativity. I like the fact that you came up with something like this. I prefer you would do that even also with men. If they are okay with a woman speaking, I do not mind one bit. And if they are okay with pouring out their opinions to a woman, that's fine. You know, I will listen. But they need to be okay to speak up, because some of these places they are getting their information is messed up, and they go and ruin their own future. So I don't think there's any man who starts a family with the aim of messing it up. Like Bogua says, yes, there'll be issues in the family. Even you marry your twin, you will have issues. But how do we solve them? Do we have to kill each other? Do we have to burn each other? We really don't have to do these extremes. We can solve these problems better and in a better way without killing and hurting each other. Thank you so much.
We've come to the end of this great discussion, and thank you for adding a voice to this great discussion of domestic violence awareness. And we've done over 2 hours, 42 minutes. That's good. A lot of great points were brought up, and we'll continue with the conversation this month and also next month, which is also the Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And let's stay safe, and let's take care of each other. And you don't have to win. You can win the battle. No, you can lose the war and win. There's a way they say that you can win the war and lose the battle. So most important here is, stay alive. If you're in an unsafe situation, leave if you have to. Mental illness is a disease, and if you notice signs of someone has one or two things, it's good to seek professional help. And thank you very much, Stella. Could you show us your book once again and tell us where you can where we can get it, and also how we can get you? I don't know whether you can share your number or Facebook page. That's a book.
This is the book. The name is The Abused Queen. You can find it at Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Also, if you want to reach me on Facebook, my name is Stella Kiinama. You can inbox me and we'll have a good chat there. And you can, and on Sundays, I do have a show that goes on live every Sunday, 3 o'clock Central Standard Time. So check your time. I don't know what time, wherever you are, you can check the time, but it's 3 o'clock Central Standard Time. So we go on live, I go on live, and we discuss issues like this, domestic violence, and all those other things that affect us. And so you are welcome to join in or follow Stella Kiinama. So you feel free to inbox me or send a friend request. Thank you so much, Sam, for having me. I really am honored, and I'm glad that we were able to accomplish something. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Stella. Thank you very much, everybody. And we'll continue with this conversation. And if you have a question, feel free to call me or Stella or anybody else in the community. And I'll leave you with the one great quote from the big book. It says, take care, do to others what you would like them to do to you. So if you're in that relationship and you're hoping your wife loves you or gives you all these good things, or if you're hoping your husband loves you and gives you all these good things, give them to him first, and that will be reciprocated to you. Otherwise, love each other, take care of each other, and stay safe. Thank you, everyone. God bless you.
Blood has antibodies that can fight the coronavirus. That convalescent plasma is being...
Thank you, Stella.
All right, bye.
Happy to help. Listen,
trying to read chat.
Oh, okay, very good. We'll continue the conversation, yeah, and we'll invite you some other time. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sawa.
Ciao.